Hello, welcome to Niwezeshe Talk Show. I'm your host, Ruben Siso. And of course, this is the platform for the youth. This is where we get to talk about issues youth unemployment, entrepreneurship, and opportunities that are available for the young person, especially around Sustainable Development Goal number 8. So today, we are going to be understanding what exactly do we mean when we say social entrepreneurship, what role does fundraising, or if you like, resource mobilization play, and of course, what is the role of partnerships. To help us understand or dissect all these matters, we are joined on set by one of the brilliant brains around resource mobilization. He is a resource mobilization expert. He will tell us where he studied, what he studied, and what he does at the moment. Welcome on set, Mr. Samuel.
Thank you, Ruben.
You can go ahead and introduce yourself formally.
Thank you, Ruben. My name is Samuel Mwai. My education background is that I have a degree in development studies and a master's in gender and development, in addition to a couple of specialized sets of training in resource mobilization. Mm-hmm. I'm also a monitoring and evaluation expert in addition to fundraising, because the two go together. Mm-hmm. You talk about what you know, and M&E is about facts, figures, and numbers. Mm-hmm. So that in a nutshell is my education background. Mm-hmm. But if you're interested to know my career background, presently I work, or rather I head the resource mobilization unit for an African grant making organization. What this means is that we give grants mm-hmm. to startups, mm-hmm. To grassroots organizations. But prior to that, I've had at least 10, 11 years of experience in resource mobilization. Mm-hmm. So broadly, that is who Samuel is in terms of my education and my experience. Resource mobilization was.
Samuel, you seem to be wearing a lot of hats. Where do you fit in this narrative of the youth, 18 to 35? Actually, we're asking about your age.
I'm a youth by age. I'm a young person, just about to cross the boundary out of the youth bracket.
All right.
But I'm a young person.
Great. So help us understand, what exactly is social entrepreneurship and how different is it from really entrepreneurship?
Thanks, Ruben. That's a very important question, because this is the point when we draw the line, so to speak. Mm-hmm. A social enterprise is what some experts call profit for purpose. Mm-hmm. The difference between a social enterprise and the traditional business mm-hmm. is what do you use your profit for. So social enterprises use their profit for purpose, for mm-hmm. impact, for changing the community, for sustaining change in the community. But their construction, in terms of their model, mm-hmm. is similar to what you'll have as a traditional business. Mm-hmm. But the difference is in the profit. Mm-hmm. While traditional businesses use their businesses for whatever they want to do, social enterprises or social entrepreneurs use their profit for purpose, for mm-hmm. impact, for changing the community. Broadly, that's the difference. It's right. Just in the profits.
All right. And of course, we are asking this question with regards to, we've brought guests on set. They've been telling our young people, or if you like, the audience, the opportunities available around employment. And now we are looking at, if you are not employed and you decide to start up something, we are looking at what else, what other opportunities are available. So I want you to speak to the role of partnerships. And specifically, how do I get to know the kind of partner I need to target? If I'm just a young person who started up a CBO, let's say, or any venture, how do I get to know the kind of partner who works for me?
Thanks, Ruben. For young people, by design, mm-hmm. you may not have a lot of what you call fiscal resources or financial resources, yeah? So your success in your enterprise is in partnership. And that's where most of these young people tend to miss it. They mm-hmm. tend to try to go it alone. Mm-hmm. So the role of partnerships is it takes you to a pedestal where you will not have been alone. Mm-hmm. An analogy, if I want to go up, let's say a ladder or whatever, mm-hmm. if I try climbing it alone, how long will it take me to get there?
Quite a while.
What if I go through your shoulders? But if the shoulders are strong, mm-hmm. the shoulders are stable, mm-hmm. the shoulders have character, it gets me there easier and faster mm-hmm. and properly. Mm-hmm. Now, the next part of your question is in trying to understand what partnerships work for you. Mm-hmm. And partnerships can make or break you.
All right.
They can make or break you. Because if we are going on a journey that you're not going on, mm-hmm. then that's a partnership that will not work for you. So what makes a good partner?
Yeah.
Number one is the values. Do you have similar values? Mm-hmm. And this calls for open, candid conversations. If our values are not aligned, mm-hmm. then we are not headed the same direction.
So me as a founder of a startup, I must have a value system around my startup first.
Sure, you must. In my experience, I've walked away from partnerships where there was a lot of potential in terms of money, but then our values were not aligned. Because it will take me there in the short term, but I'll miss it in the long term. So what I'm trying to say to me before I get into any partnership, and this is the advice I'll give young people, is make sure your value systems align. You know, they are directly where you want to go. So, I mean, the values are very important to me, and I'll put that as number one. Then number two is just, there is what we call synergy around working together. Our values may align. And, you know, for any startup, there's a lot of work that goes in at the beginning of it. So, do you have chemistry? Do you have synergy? Are you people who can work in sync? So, once your values align, then get to know if this is a person you can work with. The entrepreneurship journey, be it social or not, is a very difficult journey.
How does someone get to know if there is that synergy? Is it through meetings? Do you visit your potential partners' offices? Do you get to be part of their program activities?
All that you said is right, you know. But where I find young people are mostly getting it wrong is that you get to get into a partnership without having what we're having with you right now, without asking the difficult questions.
Yeah.
And the difficult and simple questions are as hard or as simple as asking, are you willing to work on a Saturday? Are you willing to work on a Sunday? Are you willing to work after hours? It is those very simple and difficult questions that you need to have in a conversation like the one we're having with you right now. So to answer you directly, then it's all those. It's visiting the offices. Because even in doing that, you get to know the legitimacy of your partner, which is my point number 3. If you're building a brand, who do you associate with? We've talked about the value systems. We've talked about synergy in working together. Now the legitimacy of your brand. I know you know that there are people who, by just being seen with, your brand goes down. Right? Because they have this image or perception around them that is not welcomed by the society.
Let's call it a negative brand.
A negative brand can kill your brand. But then there are these people, if you are seen with, even if they don't give you anything by association, they build your brand just by being seen with them. So we call it the legitimacy of the brand or the strength of the brand. So what is this person bringing as a brand to your partnership? Of course, then in my plate, the last one I'll say is basically the legality. There's the legitimacy of the brand or the value of the brand. Then the legality of the brand. Are they in a legal space which allows for partnership?
All right.
What I'm saying is, Ruben here may be part of a bigger brand, speaking for a bigger brand, but Ruben is not allowed to make a signature or sign on behalf of that brand. So the legality of the person you're having the conversation with, they will be part of a bigger brand, but then they are not allowed to speak on behalf of that brand. So get to do your due diligence and know if, because you can waste 2 years of, I've been in conversations, and this is why I'm telling young people not to learn from the mistakes that we did setting up in these careers. I've been in conversations with people for 2 years or for 1 year, and when we're just about to sign, you realize that they cannot sign on behalf of that organization. So 2 years wasted.
So I've assessed, because you're saying I have to assess using those parameters that you've given, value system, legality, and all that. I've done all that. So what are the clear steps, of getting to a point where we get to sign an MOU, right? What are the clear steps? I've evaluated all these things. So what next?
Have it on pen, have a pen and paper, have it as a contract, which details what are the roles and expectations of everybody. You know, as young people, most when you're making contracts as young people, we tend to go sit in a social place and agree, you know what, Ruben, I'll work with you.
Yeah.
But have we talked about how we'll share profits? Have we talked about how we'll share losses? Have we talked about dissolving the partnership? You know? So it is good to start from a friendship space, but then it is very critical to have it as a legal signed document and have the legality around it well firmed up. We have seen, or rather have seen, young people started the journey together based on friendships. Then the brand grows. Then the confusion around who takes what comes in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the clear steps for me is that if you've done your due diligence, as I may call it, please invest whichever little amount you can. And some of these partnership agreements are online. You just need to download it and then sign it and have a lawyer look through it or something. But don't really go into a partnership, even with your brother, as long as it's a business.
Even with your brother.
Or even with your father. Don't go into a partnership because these things will outlive you. if you're starting a vision, a journey, it's not about today and tomorrow. It's about 50 years from now. Look at the big brands. Started from the family sitting rooms into some of the biggest brands in the world. So if they didn't have the vision well, if they didn't assent to some of these things, because the dynamics of life will come in. You'll come and go. But then the brand will not leave you. So even with your own father, make sure it's on pen and paper, and there's a witness to the documentation.
I want us to take a little bit of bias, because you are right now working in a donor organization. And I attended an event that you spoke about resource mobilization, and you gave an example of, how a young man seduces a lady. Sometimes we may want to seduce donors in that manner. I want you to speak to what are some of the ways within which we can ensure, as young founders and entrepreneurs and CEOs, we remain, sort of in a working relationship with potential donors, in this case.
Thanks, Ruben. And you are right. I work for a donor. Presently, we have 26 partners in East Africa. We are funding. How do you remain relevant to a donor? Or how do you remain visible to a donor? Or how do you seduce a donor, if I'm to use that word? Number one, have your brand out there. Do you know that donors are always looking for people to fund? Always. Currently, we are looking for people to fund. But we don't see these beautiful brands out there. They are good stories, they are powerful stories, but we don't see them.
What do you mean? They don't publish, they don't do storytelling like what we are doing right now?
They don't. They don't. They have the ideas beautifully well. They have, they have all these things well done, but they are not out there. Personally, as I speak from you, with you right now, I was trying to prospect for new partners. I couldn't get the brand I'm looking for. So they are not out here. So number one, donors look for you to be out there. Number two, be legitimate. Because even donors want to partner with people who are legitimate. It will be a CBO, it will be a social enterprise, it will be whatever it is. Have some sort of legitimacy with you.
Break it down, Sam, because what is legitimacy? To a young person who is just starting off, what they know is a community-based organization needs to be registered probably by 5,000 and having some members. Or if it's an NGO, they go to the NGO board. What exactly do you mean by legitimacy?
Have some paperwork with you. If it's the CBO of the CBO certificate. Because I want to invest my money where there's legality around it. So if it means coming and it goes back to the story of partnerships. It may be harder, to get 5,000 as one person, but bring 3, 4, 5, 10 people with 50 shillings, whichever amount they bring in, but have some legitimacy with you. And one of the cases that pains me even now is of a young man who was out there, and I loved his brand. The first step of due diligence is give me your registration certificate. He didn't have it.
Registration certificate.
Imagine the guy didn't have it. So we had to terminate at that point. Despite knowing that, I know the story. I know it's a powerful story. I believe his heart is where it should be. But then the legitimacy was lacking. So back to try and answer your question sequentially is number one, make sure your brand is out there. Nowadays, there's social media. All you need is a phone. And some bundles, whichever amount, to just talk about have these conversations we're having. You don't need a studio set to do this.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
All you need is to take photos of whatever you're doing, as long as it's consented to, and post out there. So make the excuse I'm trying to say, the excuse that I don't have resources, to me does not apply.
And that is the next point we are coming to. I want you to speak to the excuse that I don't have starting capital. But as you prepare to speak about that, to every young person watching out there, I think it's coming out very clearly that you've got to do your due diligence, and especially around legality and legitimacy. Doing research about the organization, registering, ensuring you have the certificate. What exactly does it take? Even as we speak about the mindset of not having starting capital. Now, most young people stop at, I have an idea, but I don't have the money to start. What do you think of that mindset?
I'll say money to me is the last process of starting.
Money is the last process?
To me, and it's out of experience. It is. You need a plan. Ruben, today, right now, if I gave you 50 million and told you to spend it in 6 months, you don't have a plan, but you have what? Now you have money, you have resources. I'll confuse your idea probably more than I would have if I didn't give you the money.
Though I'll still spend the money.
You will still spend it. Spending you will. But will you get to your vision?
All right.
Right? So what you need even before money comes, and I'm saying this, and I'm sure our viewers may not believe me, but the easiest process in entrepreneurship is getting money once you have a proper plan.
Once you have a plan.
Because there are people with resources who are looking to partner with people, back to a partnership conversation. So to me, and it's very common with young people that I don't have money, I don't have the starting capital. But the first question I ask them, be they social entrepreneurs or for-profit entrepreneurs, do you have a plan? Do you have a plan? If you have a plan, is it in your head or is it in paper? You can have a plan in your head, but I need to see it on paper. And that's why we're telling young people the grandiosity of your ideas. Once you start writing about it on paper, you realize that some of them are not as grandiose as you think. But while they're in your head, they are big, they're huge. And we always encourage young people to dream big. But the truth of it is, once you start writing, reality hits you.
So then what's the role of starting capital?
It is probably for for 2 or 3. The role of it is just to ensure that the few processes that you want to do you want a registration certificate here, but don't think that you want 10 million or 5 million or 1 million or 200,000 to start. That's the myth I'm trying to debunk. One of the very successful, I'll not mention his name, but one of the very successful social entrepreneurs, probably you'll have to invite him to a show one day. Is now social enterprise worth almost 17 million Kenya shillings with 6,000. And it is not a motivational speech where people say we started with what. It is a fact backed by evidence.
Can be tracked back.
All he had was an idea. And the idea was clear. The idea had paper. The idea was on paper, And the idea was verifiable. Which brings me to my other specialty around monitoring, evaluation, and learning. You ask a young person, you want to start, for example, something that, let's say, sanitary towels project. The first question I'll ask you is, how many people are you intending to reach? Do you know the answer we get? So many people. How many are so many? How many are so many people? So this young man had an idea, he had a plan, he had his facts right. All he was waiting for is somebody to pour into that stream. And people are pouring into that stream in their droves. So to young people, it's not about the it's not about the starting capital. Have clarity of idea. Your ideas must be very clear. They should not be vague. Number 2, have that idea on paper.
On paper.
Not in your head. So when you come for a meeting, come with your idea when it's in a paper.
Some ideas have been stolen before. Okay.
Yeah.
And some young people feel, I'm safer with my idea in my head. Nobody gets to steal. You put it on paper, it gets stolen in the process of those partnerships. What do you say about that?
And you are very right, Ruben, that there are people who are continuously engaging with young people just to steal their ideas.
It's a business.
It's a business. Because they take it, they refine it, they fund it. Or they finance it if it's for profit. What I'll tell you for free is that you run that risk. Yeah? But if it's an idea which is new, novel, as they call it, then I'll encourage you to have it patented.
You patent it?
Patent the idea. Because it will be stolen. It will be stolen. Sad as it is, there are people, that's their speciality. Once they hear there's a young person with an idea, they'll call you into a meeting, into conversations, and then goes back to what we're saying. Before you go into a meeting, do your basic research about this person you're meeting. The Google, there's a lot you can get from, talk to people who've worked with this person. You know what I mean? So what I'm trying to say is, you run the risk of your idea being stolen, reality check, but how do you protect yourself is the question. One is just by knowing who you're going into meetings with. And if it's a new idea, please patent it. Patent it.
All right. So we've come from a place where we are debunking the theory that money is the first thing you need. And we are saying it's part of the process. Now, I've registered, I've done all the due diligence, and I'm starting to run a few programs. I'm a startup, right? I haven't scaled up my venture. What are some of the ways in which I can fundraise at that startup level?
We always say start from where you are. Who is in your space?
Networks.
What are your networks? Before you come to me to fund your project, I will only fund something that I'm seeing is getting buy-in from people around you. So we usually start from where you are. Who is in your space? If you are doing something, say, of reusable sanitary towels, for example, the 100 shillings you're getting from your father, from your friend, from your colleagues, from whoever is in your space. And some of the most powerful social enterprises I've seen succeed are because they started from funding, getting money from those who are there. Because once I give you my money, Ruben, I'll not want you to fail, will I?
No.
I'll always talk about your brand because I feel ownership of that brand.
Yeah.
So if I give you the 200, the 1,000, the 50 shillings, if somebody asks me, do you know anybody doing sanitary towels, reusable sanitary, I'll always mention your name. But young people want to come to a donor to give them 2 million shillings on a zero budget. There is no buying from nobody. You want to tell me operating in a white sheet where there's no people in your space who can sponsor you with 1,000, 150 shillings, whatever it is?
So what you're saying is you've got to start from within your networks, raise something, then take it out there.
Sure.
So that's number one.
Yeah.
Any other way of fundraising for startups?
Once you have that stabilized and it's making sense to you and to the people around you, now go out and look for people who fund or who partner with startups. Startups, to me, because presently I work for an organization to work with startups, is the riskiest to support.
To fund.
Or to fund. Because it's just Ruben with these ideas. Now it's on paper. But there's nobody else with Ruben. They're the riskiest, but they're the most beautiful to fund.
Why?
Because when once they get the process right, they don't have the bureaucracies of bigger organizations. And mostly, the funders started from a place of passion. So what I'm saying in answering your question is, once you've got some support around you, and support can be financial, it can be people giving you their motorbikes to walk around with. It could be, don't look at it as money. It's the resource mobilization spectrum is wide. So once you get that, now go out and scout for people who fund startups or who fund grassroots organizations. There are funders who will not touch you if you're a grassroots organization. There are people who buy into partnership who will not touch you if your budget is less than 10 million cash shillings. But there are people who specifically look for people in that bracket. If you come to where I work and say your budget is 10 million, I'll be very hesitant to fund you.
You'll be very?
Hesitant to fund you.
With a budget of 10 million, you will not fund me?
I'll be very hesitant to fund you.
And that begs the question, a young founder, a young entrepreneur, whose budget is probably less than $1 million.
Yeah.
And do you want to fund somebody whose budget is more than 10 million, let's say? How then do you get to help such a person if in the first place they don't fit in your criteria?
No, for me, I'll not touch you if your budget is more than 10 million. I'll want that 1 million guy.
Okay.
Do you know I'll want the 1 million guy? The passion is there. Once organizations grow, not all, but some, vision gets lost.
Okay.
And these people now have a structure around them that if you can't have a meeting with Ruben, for example, and agree on a way forward. So they bring a lot of bureaucracies in working with them. Yeah. Some which may be counterproductive. But for me and where I work for presently, I'll want those people with a budget of 200,000 Kenya shillings. I want people with a budget of 50,000 Kenya shillings. But I want people with a clear idea. I'll not come sit with you, honestly, if what you have is in your head. I'll not come sit down with you if you're in the process of still, trying to figure out the legality of your, because you have to believe in what you're doing and put some resources to it. I cannot come pumping money if you yourself, you're not willing to take a risk on it. So there are things you must do. I'm not saying you must have a budget of 1 million shillings, but I must see where you're headed on paper. I must see the legality of what I'm funding on paper. Then I'll come and support you.
Talking of having it right, clarity of vision is what you're talking about. Could you speak to the role of design thinking and human-centered approach in designing programs, even as we bring it to a close? Because I can see the director saying time is up.
Thanks, Ruben. And I'll take less than a minute in this. Most funders, or most people sponsor startups, fund projects that are done from the heart. So it's trying to answer the human-centered approach. I want to see your heart in the project. If you're telling me an abstract story, it starts to turn me off from our conversation.
You don't want stories?
Yes, I want to see your heart in what you're doing. Don't tell me that you want to start this big hotel, for example. I want to see where your heart is in that story. So yes, human-centered approach where you're putting your human first always attracts attention. And design thinking, I want to see the end of what you're doing. Because you ask people, where is your project in 20 years? They can't tell you. they're talking about 2 months from now. It's good to have 2 months from now. It's good to have a week from now. But I want to hear the vision in 20 years from now. So design thinking and make sure that you have the end-to-end of your project from now to 20 years from now, but have it also in paper. Yeah. So there's a lot of, and this is where most startups struggle. You have to invest in research, Ruben. Invest in research. If to have a partner, a parting shot right now, I'll say invest in a lot of research and get it right.
There you have it. To every young person out there, you couldn't have gotten this anywhere else. Why not for this platform? The essence of human-centered approach is coming to be the center of conversation, even as we get deeper into social entrepreneurship. And as you heard from the master himself, he deals with a number of organizations, and the mindset and the attitude that he's speaking about here is just start. Where I come from, they say chaka chaka, and that will be my parting shot today. I've been your host, Ruben Siso, and this is Niwezeshe Talk Show.